In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro urged the Attorney General's office to investigate the far-right destabilizing plans for the presidential elections. In Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian was elected president after defeating Saeed Jalili in Friday's runoff election. And in Palestine, Israeli occupation forces killed at least 29 civilians in 3 massacres during the last 24 hours in Gaza. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSur studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. President Nicolás Maduro urged the Attorney General's office to investigate a video released by Colombian parliamentary groups in which they claim that the extreme right contacted them to promote destabilizing plans for the presidential elections. The national president received news about an accusation made by a Colombian armed group where they claimed that they were contacted by the Venezuelan extreme right wing to carry out a plan to destabilize the government of President Nicolás Maduro on the day of the presidential elections. The video details that the Venezuelan far-right wing was seeking to attack the border areas with the support of parliamentary groups after attacking the country's electricity system. Venezuelans celebrated Friday the 213th anniversary of its independence from the Spanish colonial empire. The Bolivarian head of state, Nicolás Maduro, presided over a military parade in Caracas to mark the historic date and deliver the event's closing speech. Our correspondent in Caracas, Eunice Soner, with this story.
The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela has commemorated today, on July 5, the 213th anniversary of its independence. A military parade was held in the capital city of Caracas with the attendance of President Nicolás Maduro, who held a speech at the ceremony.
213 years later, remembering the young Simón Bolívar, member of the Patriotic Council, we can state, Miranda, Cristobal, Bolívar, we have accomplished, we have preserved the most valuable good that the liberators and the Comandante Chávez had left to us, independence. We are a free, sovereign, and independent homeland that is moreover in peace.
The day is also the day of the National Bolivarian Armed Forces. Thus, the parade had a military character, or better said, a civic military character with participation of armed forces and representatives of the civil society. Here, President Maduro also commented on the historic and future role of the armed forces of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
These armed forces of the liberators was born as the most powerful armed forces ever existed and has crushed the imperial, colonialist, and genocidal military that had dominated our America for 300 years. This is the anti-colonialist National Bolivarian Armed Forces.
And just weeks ahead of the presidential elections, which are due to take place on July 28, the president also commented on the future of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and its basic foundational political positions.
This baton of the Commander-in-Chief of the National Bolivarian Armed Forces, which I have carried with patriotism, bravery, defending the truth of our country, will continue to be in good hands in the coming years. This baton of command will never fall into the hands of an oligarch, a puppet, a traitor. I swear, never.
On the day of independence and the armed forces, Venezuela displayed unity between the presidency, the armed forces and the people, as well as a firm stance against any form of foreign intervention into the country. Soner from Caracas, Venezuela.
Nicaragua's government congratulated the Venezuelan people and its president Nicolás Maduro for the 213th anniversary of their nation's independence. The congratulations were expressed through an official statement where Managua said it was a historic day for the heirs of Bolívar and Chávez for an eternally free, sovereign and anti-imperialist Venezuela. The text also expressed the Nicaraguan government's certainty that the great triumphs and victories will continue to be harvested in all the battles by what it described as a heroic homeland. In reference to the upcoming presidential elections to be held in Venezuela on July 28th, the statement reiterated Managua's all-out support and solidarity with the Bolivarian cause in what it described as a victorious July for the Venezuelan people. A Buenos Aires court in Argentina has recognized the victims who appealed to the principle of universal justice and filed a complaint against former Colombian President Álvaro Uribe Vélez. The court ruling followed a lawsuit filed by 11 victims on November 7, 2023, before federal judges to investigate the former Colombian president for cases of extrajudicial executions. The victims claimed that they had to resort to Argentinian courts after no mechanisms were found in Colombia to carry out the investigation. The principle of universal jurisdiction allows victims to go to justice institutions in other countries to investigate those allegedly responsible for a crime. And in Paraguay, teachers' union demonstrated in rejection of the civil service and civil service career bill promoted by the government. The educators expressed that this plan does not guarantee job stability and that it is an attack against teachers' freedom of organization. In this sense, they met with legislators in the National Congress to present their demands and the rejection of this regulation, in addition to denouncing that the government seeks to suppress the right to protest and strikes. And in Brazil, at least 10 citizens died and more than 40 were injured after a bus overturned due to mechanical failure in the city of Sao Paulo. The accident happened early on Wednesday morning. According to authorities, it was a unit carrying approximately 50 passengers. The passengers on board were tourists on their way to the Basilica of Our Lady of Aparecida, an important pilgrimage site for Catholics in the South American country. In this regard, local authorities and emergency services have mobilized resources to assist victims and clarify the exact causes of the tragic event. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSur English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Well, coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. Let's now take a look at the situation in Haiti after the arrival of special forces from the Kenyan police as part of the mission approved by the United Nations to support the Haitian police in the rescue of national security. Our correspondent Daisy Toussaint has the details.
A contingent of the special forces of the Kenyan police arrived in Haiti and is in charge of restoring security in Port-au-Prince, which is almost entirely controlled by armed criminal groups. But despite the relative optimism of some sectors of the population, there are reservations due to past experiences with foreign interventions in the Caribbean nation, which were sometimes marred by accusations of abuses.
We have had in the last 20 or 30 years, more than 5 interventions of different missions of the United Nations with different names, but the result is a complete weakness of the state institutions, especially the police, and now we have the Kenyans. And now the people in Haiti are a little bit sad to see that every time the nation has to go to external forces to organize our security. But those in power, especially those who are always controlled by the United States, have really managed to take over the sovereignty and control of the country, and that is sad.
The arrival of Kenyan police officers in Haiti, as part of an international mission authorized by the UN, aims to improve the security situation in a country severely affected by violence from criminal groups.
There are many people who say they feel a little relieved to see that something is moving because we have been left for more than 2 years with the government of Ariel Henry. It is like the country The state was in pause and they were not acting at all to resolve the situation. Then there are also people who have the hope that they will be able to move freely, return to their jobs, etc., but we haven't seen anything yet.
The leader of one of the most important armed bands, Jimmy Cherizier, known as Barbecue, marched through the streets with his men to show his disagreement with the foreign mission calling for dialogue or fighting, ignoring the fact that the violence sown by these criminal groups has left more than 580,000 people displaced and has aggravated the humanitarian crisis in the country.
I know very well that a person who has a military background and a person who has knowledge about the police knows that if he is fighting, he has to leave the door open for dialogue.
Haitian Prime Minister Gary Conille has expressed optimism about the potential of this intervention to restore order and has called for patience while forces acclimatize and begin operations. But the criminal group's leaders indicate that there will be resistance and that they will go into battle.
I recognize that there are people among us who did very bad things that society does not agree with. But we are true sons of destabilizing, and we will not allow any foreign force to come here to kill us.
Despite threats from armed criminal groups, the UN and several countries involved hope that this mission will mark a positive change for Haiti, while the population waits expectantly for a solution to the crisis in the Caribbean nation.
Para TeleSur, Daisy Toussaint.
In Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian is the new president after defeating Saeed Jalili in a runoff election in the Persian nation. The Ministry of Interior confirmed that Pezeshkian obtained 53.66% of the votes. Jalili, his rival in the second round, won 44.34% of the votes in an election where 49.8% of the population voted. Supporters of the winner, who obtained 16.3 million votes, have taken to the streets of the country to celebrate the victory. Let's review the profile of Masoud Pezeshkian. Born in 1954, he has a PhD in medicine and general surgery from Tabriz University. He was appointed health minister from 2001 to 2005 during former President Khatami's term. From 2016 to 2020, he served as first deputy speaker of parliament. He has previously run for the elections in 2013 and 2021. In 2013, he resigned in favor of Ayatollah Ali Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani, while in 2021, the Guardian Council didn't pass him as a candidate. And France prepares for next Sunday's elections to decide how the new National Assembly will be formed. In this context, the advance of the far right has made more than 200 candidates withdraw their mandate to create a Republican cordon to stop Marine Le Pen at the polls. More details with our special envoy in Paris.
France prepares for the second round of the most important legislative elections in decades. Young people fight street by street to stop a far-right majority in France.
We are now distributing flyers in the streets because we believe that it is very important that everybody goes to vote, because we don't want the national rally to become prime minister, nor to have a majority in the assembly. That's why we believe that we have to go to vote and mobilize the people to go to the voting day. That's why we are here in the street giving out the flyers in the center of Paris, but also in the different constituencies.
Fabio is a young Parisian artist of immigrant origin. He follows the rise of the far right in France with great concern, but what is clear to him is that Emmanuel Macron's mandate has come to an end.
Of course. For me, his presidency is over. His party obtained a minority. It is true that there is no absolute majority, but to obtain two minorities does not give him a choice, because he would be behind the extreme right and the left forces. That's why he is blocked, because he has no choice but to collaborate with the left.
More than 200 candidates have withdrawn their candidacy to stop a far-right majority that the new Popular Front is trying to stop at the ballot box with the historical agreement of the French left.
Emmanuel Macron wanted to take the left for a ride, but they managed to reach a historic agreement in 24 hours. Many thought that there was a lot of difference, hatred, resentment, but in a context like this, there was only one possibility. That all the progressive forces and all the forces that call themselves leftists agreed on a common program and dared to lead it so that the extreme right could not come to power and that a progressive government could finally succeed in France.
The Place de la République is once again the anti-fascist symbol in France, symbol of the Republican agreement against the advance of the ultra-conservatives at the ballot box. A Republican cordon of parties, both left and center-right, to prevent Marine Le Pen's ultra-right from gaining power is the response of the political parties in France for the second round of the legislative elections next Sunday.
Sergio Rodrigo y Javier Díaz Muriana, TeleSur, París.
We have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly, share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Israeli occupation forces killed at least 29 Palestinians in 3 massacres during the last 24 hours in the Gaza Strip. The health ministry reported that the Zionist attacks injured over 100 people. Health authorities warned that many victims remained under the rubble amid constant Israeli bombardments, alerting to the possibility that both figures could be even higher. According to the latest reports, 38,098 Palestinians have been killed and another 87,705 have been wounded since October 2023. In this context, the Palestinian Health Ministry called on the international community to stop Israel's war campaign in the occupied territories. Authorities also called on humanitarian organizations to exert pressure on the Tel Aviv regime to stop its attacks on medical centers, rescue groups, and ambulances in the Gaza Strip. Only 15 out of 36 hospitals are currently operating in the Gaza Strip amid severe shortages of staff and supplies. In Palestine, also, authorities denounced a water crisis in the occupied West Bank due to Israeli cuts to water supplies. The Palestinian Water Authority pointed out that water consumption is rising in the midst of rising summer temperatures, while denouncing that the amount of water available for Palestinians in the West Bank amounts to 105 million cubic meters, 13 million less than what was agreed upon in the 1995 Oslo Accords. The Colonization and War Resistance Commission denounced that Israeli authorities control 88% of water sources in the West Bank and allow settlers to have free and unimpeded access to the vital liquid. The World Health Organization warned that fuel shortages in the Gaza Strip could have a catastrophic impact on health services destroyed by the Israeli siege. The United Nations institutions pointed out that only 90,000 liters of fuel managed to enter the Gaza Strip, while the health sector needs more than 80,000 liters daily. In that sense, the entity informed that they are working to send limited supplies of gasoline to important hospitals, including the Nasser Medical Complex and to 21 ambulances of the Palestinian Red Crescent Society. On the other hand, they also stressed the need to reopen the Rafah crossing and to allow the flow of humanitarian aid. In other news, Russian President Vladimir Putin received Friday the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban. The main issue of both leaders' agenda was finding a solution to the conflict in Ukraine. During a joint press conference following the closed-door meeting, the Hungarian Prime Minister admitted that Moscow's and Kiev's positions remain very far apart, citing his recent trip to Kiev to meet the Ukrainian leadership. However, he recognized that starting the contact was the most important step and promised he will continue to work on that direction. On the other hand, the Russian president reiterated Moscow's readiness to resolve the conflict through negotiations, but warned that the Ukrainian leadership seemed to be still incapable of abandoning its idea of waging a war until the end.
Russia favors a full and final end to the conflict. The conditions for that, as I said, are set out in my speech at the Foreign Ministry. We are talking about the total withdrawal of all Ukrainian troops from the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics, from the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. And Ukraine sponsors continue to try to use the country and its people as a battering ram, sacrificed in the confrontation with Russia. As we see the state of affairs, taking into account what we heard today from Mr. Prime Minister, Kiev is still not ready to abandon the idea of waging a war to a victorious end.
I have found that positions are far apart. The number of steps needed to end the war and bring about peace are many and high. But in terms of dialogue and restoring dialogue, the first important step has been taken today, and I will continue this work.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.
El mundo se mueve